This is your class lesson for section 2.5, part 1 of quadratic equations. We're going to begin with using the zero factor property. So, of course, we have to have these equations set equal to 0 in order to use that property. So, we'll go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides. And we'll have 6x squared plus 7x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we need to go ahead and factor that. We will end up with the multiplication of two binomials. So I'm going to go over to the right and see if I can rewrite that. Go ahead and factor that. So I have the product of A and C, which is a negative 18, and then I need those factors to add up to 7. And of course you can see a 9 minus 2. 9 minus 2 is 7. 9 multiplied by negative 2 is negative 18. So I rewrite with a group, and then I factor out the common factor. It looks like a 3x, so that's a 2x plus 3, and I'll just factor out a negative 1. I can even write that negative 1, 2x plus 3, and there we have our factored form, 3x, let me write this other term first, 2x plus 3 multiplied by 3x minus 1. So that's what I'm going to put right in here. And that's really nice to have that factoring noted down there. Now, we know by the zero factor property, if we have factors set equal to 0, either this factor is 0 or this factor is 0. And if you have more, that would be the case also. Or they are all 0, or some of them. So we write 2x plus 3 must be equal to 0, 3x minus 1 equal to 0, and we'll go ahead and solve this. Let's subtract 3 from both sides, and we end up with 2x is equal to negative 3. Divide both sides by 2, and we come up with our first solution, x is equal to negative 3/2. Okay, let me see if I can move this squiggle line down a little bit more because it really got involved there in my solution. And then let's take a look at our second equation from the zero factor property. We're going to add 1 to both sides. We end up with 3x is equal to 1. Dividing both sides by 3, and now we have x equal to 1/3. So there are our two solutions, negative 3/2 and 1/3. You can actually plug those back in and check them to see if you got that correct. Okay, I don't know what this is saying here. I'm just going to cross that off. And let's go to B. 10x squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 0. We already have our equation set equal to 0. So I'm going to multiply A times C, and that's a negative 20. And then 1 is here. That's 1. And our two factors that we will use will be a 5 and a negative 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. 5 multiplied by negative 4 is a negative 20. So we rewrite 10x squared plus 5x minus 4x minus 2. Let me remind you that this is equal to this. And 7x is equal to 9x minus 2x. So we just create a group so that we can factor. I know some of you are still struggling a little bit with factoring, and we do have to get that taken care of. Okay, so now we have 2x plus 1 multiplied by 5x minus 2. So we're going to go up here and write, why don't I go ahead and make that shell again? That's kind of nice. And then fill in what I found down here, 2x plus 1 multiplied by 5x minus 2. Okay, and we'll go ahead and solve that. So either 2x plus 1 is equal to 0, or 5x minus 2 is 0, or they could both be 0. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1 from both sides. We end up with 2x is equal to negative 1, dividing both sides by 2, and we have x is equal to negative 1/2. And now let's find our next solution. We'll go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and we have 5x is equal to 2, dividing both sides, dividing both sides by 5, and we end up with x is equal to 2/5. So our two solutions are x equal to negative 1/2 and x equal to 2/5. It was a really nice review of the zero factor property. And the second concept in this first part of this section was using the square root property. Now, as you can see, there is no x term. We have a constant and we have a squared term and a constant term. Now think about this, a squared term and a constant. And when you have that, you can use the square root property. Now, you can't use the square root property when you have an x term. So this is really handy. And basically what this says is that you are going to take plus or minus the square root of both sides. So I'm actually going to just say x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 17. And actually that's our answer. So really we're doing this to both sides. Okay? Okay, let's try the next one. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 25. Remember, the very first step is to bring that negative out from under that square root. Now we can treat this with our real number properties, okay? We can't apply our normal properties if we have an imaginary number. So now we know that we have plus or minus 5i. Let's try C. And C is really nice. Remember, we're going to take the square root of both sides here. So we will actually have x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 12. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add 4 to both sides. And we have x is equal to 4 plus or minus root 12. Now root 12 can be written as the square root of 4 multiplied by the square root of 3. And of course the square root of 4 is 2. So we have 4 plus or minus 2 root 3. And that is our solution. That is what x is equal to. And this concludes this part of topic 2.5.